On this Remembrance Sunday, we've come to the garrison town of Aldershot in Hampshire for a special live edition of Songs of Praise to honour and remember those who've lost their lives in conflicts past and present. The Army's long association with Aldershot began in the 1850s, and at its peak at the beginning of World War I, more than 17,000 soldiers were based here. Well, today there's evidence of military life everywhere you look. Generations of soldiers have left Aldershot barracks for military campaigns from the Crimean War in the 1850s and the two World Wars, right through to the conflict in Afghanistan, from where troops have been returning following the withdrawal from Camp Bastion. Well, I'm joined here in the Royal Garrison Church of All Saints by civic and military leaders and representatives of some of the regiments based here, together with cadets, veterans of previous campaigns, their families and friends. I'll be speaking to some of our congregation a little later on, and our special guest, Michael Ball, will be singing for us. But we begin with the procession of standards and our first hymn, For All the Saints. Years ago, Britain entered the Great War, and across the United Kingdom, the centenary has been marked in some poignant and powerful ways, including the poppy display at the Tower of London, where each porcelain flower has remembered a life lost in World War I. In June, veterans of the D-Day campaign of the Second World War gathered to mark the 70th anniversary of the Normandy landings, with world leaders and veterans taking part in church services on both sides of the Channel. Last night, thousands gave their support to the fallen at the Festival of Remembrance at the Royal Albert Hall. And ceremonies were held across the UK this morning, including the service at the Cenotaph in London, attended by members of the royal family. Of course, Remembrance Sunday is a very important day here in Aldershot, the home of the British Army. Earlier today, this very church was packed, as it is now, for a special service. And members of the Royal British Legion held a ceremony at the War Memorial. Well, with us here is Lewis Trinder, who's a highly decorated veteran of World War II. Lewis, good evening. You were at the ceremony at the War Memorial this morning. How important is it still, do you think, to have a day of remembrance?
It's very, very important. I lost friends on HMS Kite, and I'm still alive, and I'm very vocal. And all the time I am alive, I will promote the agenda of those people so that the message gets across that the ultimate sacrifice they made gave the freedoms that we enjoy today.
You have a very impressive array of medals, Lewis. Which one means most to you?
Well, probably the Battle of the Atlantic. The Battle of the Atlantic took place in 1943. I was on the first 6 months, I was on sloop HMS Fleetwood. I will pick out one point. On May the 20th, 1943, HMS Fleetwood sank U-boat 528. We picked up 45 survivors of a crew of 56. But you must remember, on that day, 11 brave German sailors paid the ultimate sacrifice. The second half of 1943, I was on HMS Magpie, the famous second escort group out from Liverpool under the direction of Captain Walker. We had many voyages during the latter part of 1943, culminating in 1944. In February and March, we were at sea for 35 days. That's 5 weeks. During that period, the second escort group sank 6 submarines.
Very strong memories, Lewis, and we thank you very much for your service and your memories. And thank you for coming today with some of your friends and comrades. Well, our next hymn is very strongly associated with Remembrance Sunday, led once again by our band, the musicians of the Royal Corps of Signals. Arabella Dorman is a celebrated portrait and war artist. In the past 8 years, she's made 4 trips to the front lines of Iraq and Afghanistan, spending time both with the armed forces and local people.
Being on the front line is, of course, scary. You really stay focused on your work and you put your life into the soldiers' hands and into the hands of God. I went out with few preconceptions, but was immediately awestruck by the incredible professionalism and courage of the soldiers. In war, you see the polar opposites of what human beings are capable of. You see terrible things of brutality and devastation, but you also see wonderful examples of real courage, of real comradeship, of sacrifice. What they have witnessed is often etched on their faces and in their eyes in a way that tells of horrors untold. One of the things I'm really trying to do with my work, though, is to counter a dominant narrative about Afghanistan. It isn't just a land of beards and men and guns. It's a land of girls who want to dance, of children who want to go to school. It's really taught me that what unites us is much stronger than what divides us. I take great comfort from a quote that says, if God exists, then he is like the sun, not only giving heat and warmth, but casting shadows. Now, I believe war lies low in these shadows, but what I've witnessed more of, much, much more of, is really the hope that lies within us all that will push those shadows back. I have painted too many posthumous portraits of fallen soldiers. My work is often commemorative, and I have witnessed again and again how the death of a loved one can just invade a whole family and irreparably change their lives. And I urge everyone to think about those families and what we owe to the soldiers.